Today I'm be showing you the two best ways you can build the Technomancer. The first being a damn near invincible setup that can put up a solid 100 plus million even on tier 15 to upwards to about 200 million. And the second being a little more squishy, but putting up a solid 200 million to even over 300 million if you can quickly land your shots. So really quickly before I get into the two builds, anybody going for the ice crit build, just forget it. It's absolute trash. I've already tested it, fully maxed out. It just doesn't work. So I'm going to start off with the first setup, the invincibility setup, because it's a little bit more fun. I've been having a lot of fun using this, and it's less commonly used. So you don't actually need the Reaper. All you need is a very high firepower suppressing variant LMG. At least minimum 80k if you're trying to use this on tier 15 would be preferred. I like this one because it builds into the invincibility setup. It has weakness on it, it has healing on it, it has close range, and armor piercing just doesn't really matter. So what we're going to be running on this is Dark Sacrifice. Another reason we want a very high firepower model, because this will give us a higher base damage, which will increase the bonus damage that we get from Dark Sacrifice. With this setup right here, you can kill fast enough where you're gaining substantial bullets, even off killing alphas. So it is really nice. And it basically makes you invincible, because with the setup, while you are firing and hitting targets, you cannot be killed. I've had two brood mothers on tier 15 trap me in a corner where I literally couldn't move, but they couldn't down me. I was even able to have enough time to reload with my toxic turret out and keep shooting. You are basically, you're invincible as long as you're hitting something. I mean, it's just crazy. You just stand in the AoE from brood mothers to get that bonus damage, which I'll get into in a minute. So the second weapon that you want is ideally the Thunderbird. This one you actually do want the Thunderbird because it comes with crit damage and it comes with close range damage, and it comes with the S-Class Ultimate Storm Whip mod. And now we don't care if the Ultimate Storm Whip kills or the Shadow Comet kills, because at this moment we're waiting for our rounds to come back. So we just want to deal as much damage as we can without the rounds. Ultimate Storm Whip and Shadow Comet with this gun is the way to go. If not, just pick any other one that you have. You can get two high-powered mods for on shot, because you'll be killing a lot slower. You want the mods to be on shot. Not really, didn't really do the research, but on that, just find anyone like that. But ideally, the Thunderbird. The Thunderbird's already an S-Class gun, and the Ultimate Storm Up Shadow Comet is perfect. Ideally, you want this. So before I get into armor, I'm just going to show you the other two weapons for the offensive, like 300 million build. And what you want for this is to either take the Renegade and build that up. I got a video in my recent videos for how to get God rolled pre-order guns, and a lot of people don't know the information in it. So even if you think you know, go check that out. You might learn something. So for this, we're going to be running any assault rifle tactical version, crit long range. Most definitely want those two. Want Dark Sacrifice and ideally Brain Eater. This will deal crazy damage, and when we get our headshots, it doesn't consume ammo. Now, alternatively, you can put on something like Freeze and Brain Eater. The ammo on this, definitely don't put on anything like Ultimate Storm Whip that can steal your kill. You definitely want your ammo back on every one of your kills. And then you want a second version of this, like basically identical, another one that's crit long range, and then you want it with Toxic level 3 and Brain Eater, so you're still getting your Toxic bonus while you lose your rounds. So if you lose your rounds, then you'll just switch to the Toxic version, so you still get that Toxic bonus. So on to the armor. The armor is, as I said, the same for both. The attributes that we want are bonus, close range, and long range. Now you might be thinking you want some cooldown, but you don't. If you're losing rounds constantly, you just need to keep building up into this build, because if you've already got this build, you shouldn't be losing your rounds constantly. I mean, at most once per game, and most likely if you're running the LMG setup, you wouldn't be losing it at all in most games. So you want bonus close range and long range, that close range damage to help you kill when alphas get up in your face so you don't lose your rounds or other enemies are close range to you. It happens all too frequently, even when running in a group of 3. So with Dark Sacrifice, we are constantly losing health down to the halfway mark, so we are 100% of the time getting the rejuvenation bonus. So 100% of the time, we get 14,000 extra firepower, 7,000 anomaly, and 40,000 armor. That 40,000 armor helps a lot, especially with the invincibility, making you, as I said, basically invincible. As long as you're firing, you can't be killed. And it also helps you with the OP damage build on the attack rifle. Obviously, crit stack helps a lot with attack rifle, a little bit less with the LMG, but at close to mid-range, if you can handle the recoil, which I have no problem with, crit stack does stack quickly and does immense damage. So for this, I took the legendary because it had the status power on, just so I had a little status power when using Cold Snap, and make sure I could just like walk around a big dude and get the little dude to blow up the crowd if needed. You could easily take an epic with bonus close range and long range as well and go put the Cold Snap mod on it. I would still keep the Cold Snap mod for the build because there's just no other third skill to use, and that's really the only perk you need or mod you need for Cold Snap to really make it good. And for our defensive perk, we're going to run Emergency Stance. At the moment, though, it is broken in Expeditions, so once it activates, you get the effect for the entire expedition even after the animation ends. So if it ever activates for the rest of the expedition, you now have 65% damage reduction. Now, if this ever does get patched, replace this with Mitigation from Death. So next up, again, we have bonus close range, long range. We're going to be running the spare mag. Obviously, occasionally you do mess up and you reload, or you dump the entire clip into an elite. So definitely run the 2 mags. Increase damage against elites because you're going to melt all the little dudes anyway. The elites are the ones you spend the most bullets on, so we want the increased damage on the elites. So we want Sharp Eye. Killing enemies while aiming down the sight grants you 16,000 firepower for 20 seconds. Now, if you don't already have this, obviously just replace it with Bloodlust, but this is the best killing one. It goes for 20 seconds, there's no deterioration, and the firepower gain is immense. Obviously, we want our Toxic Radical, we want that 15 right there. Now, we actually are going to replace our Blighted rounds with the 25% bonus damage on Toxic enemies. I don't actually have that mod at the moment, so I can't show it right here, but replace Trick Up the Sleeve with 25% bonus damage on enemies afflicted with Toxic. And then we do want the Toxic Lead mod. And if you are really struggling with this build to keep your rounds, the one you should remove and keep the 2 ammo regens instead of the 1 would either be Cold Snap, or more likely what you should remove is Rejuvenation. You'll be a little bit more vulnerable, but you'll be getting more rounds back. The firepower gain is pretty nice on this, so I would really try just using this build and only using the 40% ammo regen. It just gives you immense firepower. So the only reason you should be missing your rounds is if you're missing shots. So we'll go on to the skill tree. Obviously, it's Blighted rounds, Cold Snap, and Blighted turret. And for our class skill tree, we have increased weapon damage, increase your weapon leech. Now this is the only one that is actually debatable in the skill tree, because you don't need it for the Blighted turret, and if you're not having a problem with keeping your rounds, and at most, like sometimes you lose it once per expedition, you actually can consider taking off this one and gaining 12% extra anomaly power or 10% health or resistance would be your three choices. That's not resistance, but one of these ones you can take. Maybe you can't take resistance, no. But you can either take 12% anomaly or 10% health instead. Then you have crit damage, toxic on enemies, inflicts vulnerability, and you do want vulnerability afflicted on an enemy is 40% more effective, because not only does that increase, I'm not sure if it increases the duration per se, but it does increase damage. I've tested this out. You will do more damage with this on. Armor piercing doesn't matter, but you gotta take it. We do want to decrease, the long range by as much as possible, because we will get that 30% long range bonus later. Plus, we got the 50% long range in our build. Increase the weapon damage here. Increase more damage, 10% on toxic enemies. More damage, more damage, more damage. Doesn't matter. More damage, more damage, more bullets, more damage, more damage, more damage. And yes, spam your turret. You don't gotta spam it every time that it comes available, because it's 6.5 and you get 8 or 10 seconds of extra damage. I believe 10 seconds extra damage. But you should be throwing out a real good amount of turrets per game. Plus, it inflicts enemies with toxic, allowing that first shot that you fire to deal more damage. So you should almost always have a blighted turret on the board. And that is the two best builds for the Technomancer. Once again, do not build the ice setup. All the other setups are absolute trash. I tried making them work. They just don't work at the moment. If you want to do over 100 million damage consistently, you got to pick one of these two builds. I hope that helps.